Hello and welcome to the month of Tishrei. In the Western astrology calendar, it's Libra, and Libra is ruled by the planet Venus, and it's an air sign, a cardinal sign, and this is the time of year that we focus more on healthy relationships and the balance of ourselves. We've come from Virgo, which is an earth sign that's really focusing on separating the wheat from the chaff and discerning and picking out the finer points of how we can purify ourselves and be of service to the world. And we do that through relationship to ourself and God, or ourself and our Creator. And in Libra, it's more about taking that relationship to less of an individual place and more to our community. And how do we relate to others around us? How do we relate to our loved ones and everything else out there in the world, from people sitting in traffic to, people that are very close to us? It can be finding the way to see ourselves in that as well, like finding the balance of who we are in those situations, which can be hard for a Libra sometimes, is because they can see all sides. So the challenge and the journey of that is to find the judgment within it all, the balance. How do we discern, who we are and how we are going to be in the world in right relationship? In our bodies, that is represented by the kidneys, and the kidneys really filter and have osmosis of all the water in our bodies, and they filter out what we bring in and what we bring out, and how we are either too tightly holding onto our water or too loose with our water, and all the different ramifications of that, and also about our eating habits, like how we're prone to sugar addictions or general addictions, which is basically just a fundamental way of saying we are out of balance with ourselves and our relationships. That's what addiction really is when we become out of balance with ourselves and our relationships. And our kidneys are also the balance of our acid-alkaline system in our body. So it's all about that this season. It's all about the give and take and where we are within that. I always used to say that, I was talking to you before about how I always used to get a cough and lower back pain around this time of year. And it was always like a signal to me, like last time we were talking about the shofar blast being a callback to ourselves. And that always felt like a big shofar blast to me, saying, hey, time to come inward, time to come inside. It's been the long hot summer and you've been out and it's very hot and you need to be more outward in summer. And now it's like autumn time. It's becoming the balance of the seasons, and that can kind of lead to a little sadness sometimes, or a little bereftness, So one of the herbs that really spoke to me a lot this month was goldenrod, because it really is very golden, and it's the time of year where all the grasses have dried up and it's all very golden, and it also works on your kidneys and your urinary tract system. It also helps with allergies, but it also is a very wonderful balancer of the seasons at this time. It can help with like minor melancholy and depression and really lift your spirits at this season. Here's some goldenrod here if anyone wants to try a little.
Different than golden seal?
It's different from golden seal. It's called solidago, and it's about solidifying our relationships as well, and kind of like the balance of those seasons. So I really like that. It's a big ray of sunshine at this time of year. And I also really like rose, because rose is the herb of love, and it's like the ultimate Venus. It's the ultimate Venus. It's the ultimate balance of relationships, and it says it very clearly. Goldenrod, yeah. And rose is all about softness and warmth and love in relationships, and healing grief, which may be due to like past hurts in relationships or disappointments, so that can open up our hearts. And also Damiana, which is a similar thing. Damiana is usually thought of as an aphrodisiac. I made some Damiana wine, and it's something that kind of really goes to your pelvic system. It's a relaxant, it's a nervine, so it's gonna just relax, open any parts of you that need that to become more present in your relationships. It's also good for not just sexuality, but also like social anxiety or any kind of, if you partner it with kava and lemon balm, also for like old wounds, and rose as well, old wounds and past relationship hurts.
This is lovely how you've put the rose petals on.
I didn't do it, but yes.
It's nice whenever you see something or eat something with roses. It just really does something to your system.
For sure. And the last herb was raspberry leaf, which is more, it's a very woman herb. It's really good for your womb, and it's also really good for maintaining your boundaries of water because it's an astringent, so it's going to tighten and tone your tissues, and it's also going to work on your kidneys in that way. And it was really good because it has lots of minerals and vitamins in it, so the remineralization process is like really helpful for your kidneys.
Would any of these be good for me if I'm fighting a flu off right now? I've been feeling a little hot temperature.
Yeah, rose would be wonderful for cooling that down, and well, I think that raspberry leaf is going to be good for just remineralizing, but other things can be more helpful for that, you know, like elderberries and
like this one
and that one,
yeah.
Amazing.
Elderberries, elderflowers, yay! Astragalus. Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
It's also, maybe I was reading about another herb that could be great for a Libra who's maybe too open. I was reading about yarrow.
Oh yes.
That could also be a great ally if somebody's feeling a little bit too giving.
And for fevers too, right?
For fevers. To just create that boundary.
That's lovely.
Also for this time.
Yes, definitely. I feel like that's the ultimate boundary protector for sure. You know, whether with love, like pink yarrow, or for just even environmental, you know, just environmental boundaries, so you're not seeping out all the time. Yeah, for sure.
That's so great. I just want to talk a little bit about how the relationship piece with Tishrei, but first, just to set it up, Tishrei is the 7th month, and it's the busiest month for a lot of Jews because it is full of holidays. I mean, you really don't get a break in Tishrei. You start off on Rosh Chodesh with Rosh Hashanah, that's 2 days, that's the new year, celebrating the creation of human beings. Pretty big deal. Then you have Yom Kippur on October 8th and 9th. That's the Day of Judgment, you know, the classic being written in the book of life, not the book of life, or the average book, which is what most people tend to be written in. Then following that, you have Sukkot, where we build these huts outside. California is a great place to celebrate because people use those palm fronds, and it really feels like you're in the desert. And that's really a celebration of how little we need to be connected to God and to each other, and just reminding ourselves of the desert practices of our people and sharing in that space in community. And then we have Simchat Torah. So it really is this month of celebration and community, which is following Elul, which was this month of self-reflection and personal questioning and just really an inward practice. And in my own personal life, I'm doing 40 days of being inside. And in the last video I had mentioned, from Rosh Chodesh Elul to Yom Kippur is 40 days.
Oh, wow.
So after this inward time, we go outward. And that's why many of the prayers we say are communal. Like we're saying, we have sinned, we have done this, we have done that. We say, we want everybody, you know, we're really praying with and for each other. And that's so much of the power of this month, being together. And in connecting with some of the herbs that Lauren was mentioning, and that the love and boundaries, the action of this month is sex, which in many ways encapsulates all of those ideas. You know, how do I create boundaries with my body? How do I love? Am I ready to create and be mother or father? You know, this very, very sacred act that, in fact, when we do engage in the act of creation, God is a partner. It's a male, a female, and God creating another human being. And so it's the closest we can get to God. And it is a real reminder this month that we this is a sacred act, and we are sacred beings. Like, we have the power to create. That is just unreal. And what do we need to do, and how do we need to care for ourselves and for each other so that we can hold that act in its sacredness? And the last thing I want to mention about the month is about the letter Lamed. Again, connecting it to relationships. The letter Lamed is like, probably don't get a sense of that, but it's the first letter in the word for heart, which is Lev, and also the prayer that we usually recite at the most exciting times of year is Hallel, which has a double Lamed. So it really does represent sort of jubilation and love. However, there's a saying in Chassidus that the farthest distance is the distance between the heart and the mind. And so how often do we encounter that in our lives? And this month is all about, where am I in my heart and my head? How can I bring those two together? The balances, sexuality, like, where is the meeting point between these two? And we're so blessed to have so much ritual and tradition that allows us to sort of bring those two, or at least understand them, and not be torn by their sometimes conflicting messages, which is so much Libra. I'm a Libra, and the indecisiveness can be one of Libra's traits. But if you work and have ritual, which hopefully Amanda will share with us, rituals that can help in this month and time to unite those two parts of ourselves.
Absolutely. Lovely. Beautiful.
Great. Yeah. I mean, it's all about balance, right? And I have with me a bunch of different calendars. This is a beautiful Hebrew circle calendar. This is an old one, but we see the balance of not just the month of Tishrei, the Libra, the scales, but the balance really of the whole year. And how do we hold ourselves in balance? And in balance with the seasons, so we don't get the viral fall downs, fall outs. And we have each month kind of associated with an element. And so we went through, we just came out of the 3 months of Tammuz, Av, and Elul. And so we had the Tammuz is a watery month, and Av, fire, Elul, earth. And so last month we talked about earth practices, and we talked about wrapping and grounding. We talked about the belly. And each of the months, they're often, I like not just that they're paired in twos. There's like one that's more of an internal month, one that's more external. Last month was introspective, Virgo, going into Elul, your daily shofar, your daily accounting of what you need to say, prayers of forgiveness, or how you forgive yourself or others. You go from that internal state to the external, to the saying it in community with the we have sinned and we have done wrong and we ask for forgiveness. So there's the pairing, but then I love the triple action of the threes. And that really goes back to when we as a people understood the elements and the seasons as there being three. There wasn't 4 elements.
Yeah.
There was primarily 3.
So it's like the mutable, the cardinal, and the fixed as well. Like that's a different way of looking at it as well. They're like the modes.
Yeah. So we had Shemaim, we had the sky and the sun, and then we had the water. And water gave birth to earth. So the earth element is in the water, but we had fire and we had water, and then we have air balancing between the two. And so Tishrei is that air, is that place of balance, right? We've just come out of fire, through Elul, earth, and now we're coming into this air practice. And so there's so many ways we as a community are ritualizing it through the shofar blasts, through our prayers, through our words. So there's so much ritual happening in community. But for those that want to also have a ritual practice or a home practice every day with being mindful of your words and your breath, try either, if you're familiar with any of the yogic breath practices, you can do a breathing practice every day. What I want to encourage is using this technology of the calendars, and every day writing, having a journal. Writing is also associated often with air because it's words. Mm-hmm. So using your words, using your ability to write, to reflect. And this is a beautiful, there's so many calendars we have to choose from. This is a new moon calendar journal, and by April and Sita, friends of mine, so shout out to them, where you can every month draw a new moon mandala and release the previous month, and then look at your intentions and chart every day. So the recommendation there, and with this amazing Jewish lunar solar planner calendar, every day there's a day to write down how did you do for each day? What were your intentions that you set? And where are you in balance? Where are you out of balance? I feel like journaling, that daily accounting is the only way I can really keep myself honest or in it, and noticing, there's times I know that I maybe go through a 2-week period of a lot of exuberance and a lot of energy, and then a 2-week period that's just a little bit more contained. Or I need to carve out, oh my gosh, my whole month has been this thing and that thing and this function and that function. I need to make sure I really have a container of, a solid Shabbat, or a day, a retreat, whatever it is, a weekend, a week, that you can balance that out. And I just don't know any other tool as effective as really counting those days and making each day count. From my calendar practice, I've charted the whole the whole year, so that every month I have some comment on what that month, the energy of that month was. What was the seed, the essence? What was my intention that month? So now that we have just completed a whole cycle of 13 months, in this particular leap year, sometimes there's 12 moons. Last year, Tishrei, my intention is right there, that my mantra was, this is good. So I can see what was Tishrei for me last year. Cheshvan, Kislev. So there, I've just kind of mapped my year. So I love having, the daily map, the monthly map, the year map.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah. And it's beautiful because even though this month there's this idea that God is judging us, it's nice to remember that ultimately we can look at ourselves and how do we feel about ourselves, not to get fixed on how are other people seeing me, how is this person seeing me, that person, but how do I see myself? And I love how this practice could really give you a great sense to see yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And slichot, forgiving yourself. I know that for me that's going to be a big one.
That's like the quintessence of Libra right there, right? It's like we can get very lost in how other people see us, or even how we think God might be seeing us, you know. But what are we bringing towards that? How are we co-creating that? And what's our piece? And I totally love the idea of just journaling it down. I don't know if either of you know about the 10 questions that you do. It's an online thing that you do between.
Make sure you speak up.
You do between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and it's an online thing, and they ask you questions each day, and then it goes into a vault. It's really wonderful, and then you get it back. I mean, it's the same thing as you doing it yourself.
Yeah.
This one. What's this one?
Amazing.
This is real, and you are completely unprepared.
But it's a journey of transformation. The days of awe as a journey of transformation. So the days of awe. Can you speak to that a bit? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean the days of awe are Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur,
and the 10 days,
and then the 10 days in between.
Yeah.
But that is an incredible book because it actually takes you from Tisha B'Av all the way through Sukkot.
Yes,
And
so
it
got the
works,
meditation in there.
basically it takes your soul, there are levels that your soul is going through.
And through the fire into the...
Through it all. And Rabbi Alan Lew, Zichrono Levrcha, he passed away, but he describes it in such a way that is very easy to understand and also gives you tools. So for example, he says, okay, it can be really overwhelming to change your whole life. So focus on one little thing. Maybe it's focusing on your eating. And then you'll see how just by changing your relationship to food, your relationship to maybe sex or conflict change. And so he really breaks it down from the macro idea of the holiday to the micro of what you can do as an individual, like you were saying with the journaling practice.
There's so two other calendars I wanted to show. I'm happy to email this out to anyone who wants to, have a map for the year to write those seed intentions. I love this yearly calendar as well, and this is for cycle charting, for menstrual cycle charting. Those of you who have a moon or menstrual cycle charting practice, this is a way of charting it onto each of these. Where's January? But here we are in September, so you would start in September, October, November, and just having that also visual, knowing where you are in connection to the moon. And just the last thing about the elements is, as you go into, whether you go into services and you hear the prayers, the Utana Tokef is a potent one, bringing up the who by fire, who by water, who by sword. We go through a journey from Rosh Hashanah with the apples and the honey. It's such an earthy way of celebrating that holiday, and we go from that earthiness at the table to our prayers, our words, whether silent or communal, and then we go into fasting, which is purifying. So that's a very fire practice. So each of these are very connected to bringing all of those into balance. Then we go into Sukkot, also air, outdoors, but very earthy with all the harvest foods and fruits. Then what do we do at the end of Sukkot? We pray for water. So we recognize that we're in this time of bringing everything into balance, bringing the earth, the harvest, the foods, the fruits, in connection with our prayers, our intentions, our purification rituals, and then hoping, praying, and calling in the return of the rains at Hoshana Rabbah.
It's kind of like spiritual vital signs. We think about our pulse and our temperature, and this is kind of a year to focus on our spiritual vital signs. That's what I'm thinking with all of this, all of these practices, making sure they're working for us and not working for anyone else.
Yeah, the guy.
So who wants to sing the Leonard Cohen song? That's a way of closing. Who by fire. I think that's all.
Yeah. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
And may be inscribed for good.
Yeah.
Amen.
For life. Bye.